many investors, Corey, assume that wealth is just a number. And I
Mm,
would argue a lot of financial advisors just assume that.
totally.
But our point today is that it can quietly influence your decisions, your relationships, and even, this is scary, your identity. Welcome back to Upticks with Jake and Corey. Corey, welcome back to the show.
Jake, thank you for having me.
Corey, we have kind of an opaque title this week, so I'm excited to talk about it with you. The topic this week is what your wealth might say about you. So I'm very interested to hear your perspective. We didn't do, for our audience, we didn't do any pre-discussion about this. We do have an outline, of course, for our show that we want to hit on some important points, but Corey and I haven't really discussed this. Also, thank you to the listener that sent in a very interesting question about ESOPs. Corey and I will make sure and cover that towards the end of the show, as well as share our personal secrets at the end. So be sure to turn into the end. But Corey, I do want to get into today's topic about what your wealth may say about you. And here's the deal. All right, let me set this up for you. If your wealth could talk, what would it say about your values, your fears, or your ambitions? So, Corey, what do you think about that setup here? What are your thoughts on that when I ask you that question?
I think that a question that the wealth could ask you, Jake, is I was supposed to make you feel safe. Why are you still afraid?
I know you've been posting a lot about that lately.
Yeah. Or even, Jake, one could be, you never really saw me. You just kept chasing more of me.
Wow. You never really saw me. You just kept chasing more of me.
If your wealth could talk.
Good, Corey.
Chasing
Double
more.
click into that. Tell me more about that. Have you experienced that yourself or with clients, or what are you suggesting when you said it? You never saw me, but you kept chasing me.
Yeah, I think so. I have experienced this some myself, Jake, and I've identified or observed this in talking with clients, prospective clients over the years. The bigger point there, I think, is just the actual relationship with money, how it's really a tool that can be used. And having clarity around that is something that I've acknowledged in my own life, that just chasing money isn't going to change anything. And in fact, that just chasing more of it is not really the point. And that I think that the peace or the security that people are looking for, like Jake, you and I ask people that question, right? Why is money important to you? And, peace, comfort, security, those are answers that we get often. And I totally understand that. But I also think that money inherently, it can help provide some of those things, but money is not going to be what gives you peace. It's not going to be what gives you comfort or security. There's more there that's deeper.
Right. And I don't want to shame people that are wealthy.
No.
By the way. So I think being wealthy, or whatever you want to call it, is a great thing. I think at some point in my life, Corey, I turned to the corner. I told you and I have talked about this in the past, is that where I was comfortable, like I had enough money to provide food and shelter and be self-sustaining, right? Like my parents didn't need to support me and I could live the lifestyle that I wanted. And now, in at least my line of profession, money is just a scoreboard, but it doesn't really influence my life nearly as much. But you and I are very fortunate to be in that circumstance.
Correct.
I think a lot of people don't have that. And so money does scare them. Or maybe they go to church every week, Corey, and they say that they're religious people, but they actually don't give any money to their church.
Yeah.
They don't tithe. So is your money aligned with your values and what you value?
Right.
So
how do you do this, Jake? Because I, in my opinion, I think that you are a good example of this. So how do you do this? Why don't you talk about that a little bit more? How do you align your money with your values?
Yeah, well, so again, to me, it's you got to take care of yourself first so that you can have a sustained lifestyle, right? Like clients will tell me all the time that money makes the world go round, like you got to have it, right? So I make sure that all of my financial obligations are taken care of. So what does that mean? I got to pay my utility bills. I got to pay my mortgage. I got to save in my retirement accounts, right? I got to make sure all of that stuff's covered first. Then I make sure that my long-term goals are budgeted for accordingly, Corey. And then I don't spend money on things that aren't aligned with my values. I'm trying to give a good example. So I'm trying to think of something that maybe somebody spends a lot of money. Like Corey, I don't want to be 100%, but I'm pretty confident that I've never bought anything on Amazon, believe it or not.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
So I don't think I've ever bought anything on
I
Amazon
wonder how many people there are out there in the world today, Jake, at
that
least in our
haven't.
country like you. Yeah.
In fact, the only reason I have an Amazon account is because my book is on Amazon. Quick plug for the book, Retiring Right,
Ooh,
Smart Steps
nice.
for Exiting Corporate America. If you do shop on Amazon, you can pick up your copy of my book on there. But I don't do that. So I would say that I'm not a casual shopper. Like when I buy things, it's very
Yep.
intentional. It's
Yep.
not like I don't buy just stuff to buy stuff. I don't really shop emotionally. And so I think
Good.
that's how I line up my values. And as far as charity and contributions are concerned, I love aligning my charitable contributions with our clients, because I love working with my clients and hearing about charities that they're passionate about. So that's typically how I align my charitable contributions. If I have a client that's part of a board of a big gala or a ball or a fundraiser, and I can help support them, then I love doing that because that helps support my clients. And without directly, can't clients would never let me directly give money to a client. That'd be a big no-no in our industry. But if I can align my charitable intentions with the people that I care about, to me, that's a big deal for me doing those things. So
That's
does
great.
that
And
answer your question?
it does. And what I hear you saying though, Jake, is that you are aligning your money with your values. And I think that can sound touchy feely, right? To some people, like we can say that align your money with your values. The reality is it's a challenge, right? It's taken you a long
Yes.
time to get there. So how do people do this?
Yeah, so it starts with getting real with yourself. And you and I are wealth advisors and we talk about finance and money every day. But the key here is you've got to check in with yourself and define what is important to you, because what's important to me may not be important to you at all, Corey. And
Right.
so you've got to understand, you've got to get real with yourself and be honest with yourself and decide what is important. Maybe it's not important that you give to your church for whatever reason, and that's okay, right? And so, but you've got to define that first, and then you need to build out a plan, and then you can allocate certain dollars towards your values. But till you go through that self-reflection, you're just, like you said, you're just chasing money. You're not really seeing it. Whatever you said earlier, that was good. That like, would you say you haven't really seen me, but you keep chasing me?
Yeah. You never really saw me. You keep chasing more of me.
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people do. And again, there's no judgment
I've
here, but
done
I
it.
think,
I've
yeah,
done it,
yeah.
to be crystal
So
clear.
now I don't know what the studies are. I don't have a reference here, but the point of my outline is that there's studies that show that wealth can either magnify your best qualities or your worst. So my question to the audience, and I won't put you on the spot, Corey, but which one is it doing for you? So that's another thing that, like, maybe you drink too much. Maybe not you, Corey, but maybe someone has a drinking problem, right? And they can afford to buy a case of beer every other day, and they know they shouldn't be spending money on alcohol, but they're doing it. And so that's what I'm getting at, that could magnify a bad quality, right? Or overeating, right? Or maybe you're a woman and you've got 20 purses, right?
Sure.
And you have this addiction to buying new purses all the time. And so that is, again, maybe buying a lot of purses is something that's is value to you, and there's a reason behind it. But my point is, check in behind, why are you spending money the way that you are?
Yes.
And what is your wealth really saying about you? That's today's topic. So we're going to get deeper into this. But the challenge here is that many investors, Corey, assume that wealth is just a number. And I
Mm,
would argue a lot of financial advisors just assume that.
totally.
But our point today is that it can quietly influence your decisions, your relationships, and even, this is scary, your identity in ways that people might not realize. So why don't you unpack that a little bit for us, Corey? The challenge here. What are
Yeah.
some
So
blind spots that people see?
I think a big one is not checking in on really what the money's for. And this, Jake, you've already mentioned this, but I'm looking at this from the perspective of meeting with people that have as far as their financial plan and their resources go, they're in a great spot, but they still don't feel secure. And I think that that's because there could be something unresolved that the money could sort of magnify, back to the point that you made. But I also think for me, Jake, and I'll just kind of equate this to me personally, um, the kind of, what is the wealth whispering in your ear, right? What does it say about you? Things like you're the provider, or you're the success story, or you're not allowed to lose. And then all of a sudden, your financial decisions can end up protecting like a self-image, as opposed to why the money's really important to you in the first place.
Yeah, that's good. It also goes into like status signaling. Like,
Totally.
people
Yes.
that buy those flash. There's Rachel and I talk about this, about old money versus new money.
Yeah.
Her and I very much lean on the old money side. Like, I buy really high quality suits
hmm
and ties, but most people wouldn't know what brand they are.
Mm.
Whereas
Your
I
old
know,
money, Jake. Look at you.
yeah,
Just
no,
kidding.
no knock on Louis Vuitton, but pretty much when somebody has a Louis Vuitton luggage or purse, like it's
It's right in your
branded over the
face.
whole thing,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? So we don't,
Got to
Rachel, I
let
don't,
people know what you got.
we don't really shop that brand. And
Yeah,
again, maybe you like it. Louis Vuitton's
sure.
a great luggage maker. Maybe you like their luggage, and that's fine. I'm not, but again, it's just you have to understand. But are you just doing that, like I said, to signal that you've got money? Or how about
Right.
this one, Corey? How about a blind spot is legacy anxiety, like leaving your kids too much money or not enough money, right? So that's another blind spot with what your wealth says about you, and being careful about. We have those conversations with clients, like how much do you want to leave your kids, and do you want your kids to know how much money you have? And these are all big parts of wealth management and conversations that we have. And do you have thoughts on that one?
I do. Those are great questions, Jake. And I would speculate that the way that people answer that, generally speaking, is based upon their own legacy from their own family, and how they were
Yeah.
raised and the way that they think about it. And I think what we're talking about again here today is just saying that, if the goal itself is I have to leave more money to my kids than my family left to me, or I want to die with zero, right? I want my last check to bounce, whatever it might be. The reality is that check in on what matters to you as opposed to what the circumstances were before you. And I think that, like, if we are taking our own life experience and trying to look at it through the same lens of how we want things to be in the future for our own family, you've got the opportunity to look at it with fresh eyes to say what's important to me and what matters. That's a whole different place to view that.
Yeah, it's called and you talked about your family, like your parents or your grandparents or your parents, like they may have been wrong in their relationship with money. And
Sure.
it's called a conditioned mindset. And it's very difficult to unwind that and to break that. The first step in that, Corey, is actually to have awareness that's saying, you know what? I don't like I would challenge all of our audience to ask themselves, like, what was my so we always go introspective, like talking about ourselves, but I would challenge them to think like, what was my parents' relationship with money?
Mm.
And what positives can I take from that? And what can I learn from that?
If
And
everybody did that, there's a lot to learn.
yes, and what about your grandparents? What was their relationship with money? And what's crazy is there's a lot of recency bias. So if your grandparents were in the depression, they're going to have a completely different mindset than someone that was in the 90s when things were booming, right? Completely different
Totally.
mindset. The joke in the wealth management business is if you ask somebody their risk tolerance, a client their risk tolerance right after a crash, they're going to be far more risk adverse than if you ask somebody during a bull market. And that's actually why, Corey, I don't really like to ask clients their risk tolerance too much because
Depends
there's
on the
too much
day.
it's not fair. It's not a
Yeah.
fair question
Yeah.
to them. Like their psychology is going to be based on what the current events are. And that's not really what you want to do when you're trying to build a financial plan that's designed to last 30, 40, 50 years. And so
Right.
instead, as fiduciaries, we don't tell clients what their risk tolerances should be, but we talk about their risk capacity when we're talking about their financial plans. And so the key here is just to understand and get in with that relationship of what the wealth says and what are the good parts and what are parts that need to be changed. So I thought that's good. There's a lot of influence in there, And then the last point I wanted to make with the challenge is that I see this a lot, Corey, in clients that maybe don't have as much saved for retirement. They are so scared of losing their money because they may say, Jake, I only have $500,000. I don't have $5 million, and I can't afford to lose this. Problem with that, though, Corey, is that they make decisions that are hurting themselves oftentimes more than they're helping themselves because and that's the reason they only have 500,000 is because they have been too fearful to manage their money the correct way. And so you have to be careful. Just like people with 50 million may be overconfident and have a mismanagement of their wealth also. So here's the opportunity though. And we talked a lot about the challenge, and I've talked about this a lot, and it's aligning your wealth with your purpose and your values. And I can't stress this enough. This exercise that I've gone through, Corey, I believe you've gone through it, and we encourage everybody to go through it, is to sit down and to just brainstorm words that align with what you value. And you can literally type it in AI or Google, like, give me a bunch of words that represent values. And you can get a list of 30, 50 words, and then just circle them or highlight them or write them down, like your top 10 that, like, oh, yeah, that one really resonates with me. And then you can start making statements around those words of why they're important to you. Right. And then you can, I did this, right? I did this. And so, and then I came up with about 5 statements that encompass all of my values. And then I've got a big purpose that's like my North Star, which is my personal purpose, Cory, is that inspiring others to live happy and healthy lives. Right. All my values kind of point towards that. And that's what I really work on. At Falcon Wealth Advisors, we want to enhance our clients' lives. Typically, that's educating them through financial literacy, right? And helping clients understand what their financial plan means to them. So that's our purpose here when I'm working at Falcon Wealth Advisors. But I know that, and I'm very clear. And so what happens is, Cory, all of my decisions go back to that purpose. So whatever I'm doing here at work, it goes back to that purpose. Whatever I'm doing personally, what it has to do with money, is it feeding my purpose? Is it aligned with my values? And it's so much easier for me to spend money now or to save money because I have that figured out. Now, the cool part is your purpose can change as your life changes. So I don't want people to feel pressure on this and say, well, geez, Jake, that's a heavy ask. Like, I know what I feel like today, but I don't know I don't know if that's going to be the same in 10 years. And that's okay. Then you know what? You do the exercise again. I know I went off on a little bit of a tangent, Cory, but do you have thoughts have you done this?
I have.
What's your purpose?
And I think it's, so my purpose, Jake, I went through this exercise a couple of years ago. I don't have it memorized as successfully as you do, which I should.
You should get a tattoo, Cory.
Right here.
Then you have to change your tattoo when your purpose changes, but go ahead.
But it was really about living out my values, living out my success, and inspiring other people to achieve their own success.
Yeah, good.
So defining that kind of in their own way. And I think, though, Jake, you talked about this pressure, right? You mentioned, you made that comment just a moment ago. And I think that wealth and money can cause pressure for people until it becomes more of a tool. Like to your point that you just made about the exercise that you've gone through, the way that you've aligned your values with your money. If you haven't done that, it can just create pressure. But for you, I would argue, Jake, that money's more of a tool, right? And you understand how to use that tool and you have clarity around that. And that's why you're able to spend money on things that you want to, and you're not wasting money on things that you don't want to spend it on.
Yeah.
But a lot of that, the point I wanted to make there, though, is that's like money actually means something instead of just being a pile of money that you have.
Right. Or a number.
Exactly. Number. Yep.
So good. So once you have your purpose and your values figured out, then you can start making investment choices that support your long-term emotional and financial well-being. And that's the whole key here. And that, to say money's not emotional is wrong. It is emotional.
Right.
And, that's okay. And if
Correct.
you want to have money to help support your family, then that should be part of your values. And you should use money on that. And you shouldn't feel bad about that. Because we talk about removing emotion, and yes, we don't want to make knee-jerk decisions, but let's be clear here, Cory. Money is emotional.
I agree.
And we don't want to disqualify those emotions. We just don't want to make bad decisions based on those emotions. But if, you shared a story a few weeks ago about how you knew someone that bought a lake property and you saw the joy in their face when their family was enjoying that. That was an emotional purchase.
Totally.
That lake property was an emotional purchase. And I'm assuming, according to their financial advisor, which is not us, that it made sense in the financial plan. And that's perfect. There's nothing wrong with that. So we want to use wealth to create clarity, not confusion. And I think that's really what we do at Falcon Wealth Advisors for our clients, is that we want to unmuddy those waters and help clients get crystal clear about what they want to do in their financial plan. And then we want to help align those investments and that cash flow up with that plan. So speaking of that, Cory, quick commercial. So thank you all for tuning in. Again, our subscriber count continues to grow. Please like, share our content, 5-star thumbs up rating. The whole point of Upticks is to enhance financial literacy. Also, thank you for our audience who are emailing Luke. You can simply email Luke at falconwealthadvisors.com. If you've got a show topic or a question for us, please send it to Luke, and Luke will make sure that Cory and I address your question, and maybe we'll address it here live on Upticks. Also, I'm out there on Instagram, Jake_Falcon_CRPC, and Cory is Cory Bittner KC. All right, Cory, story time. Do you have any stories of client? We'll keep the clients anonymized, but do you have any stories, or it may be personal or with clients, where you've seen this kind of wealth not be reflective of what a client really was, and they had to really understand that?
Yes. So I'm gonna paint with a broad brush here, Jake, rather than just give one specific example. But I want to speak. I think that this will resonate with people. Everything that we talk about on the show, around aligning your money with your values, planning for retirement, having purpose, etc. I think that there's virtually everybody who's watching or listening to this may have some experience with someone in their life that lost their identity after they retired, that they envisioned this period of time would be something very specific. And then when they get there, emotionally, they don't feel like they're in the right place. And that's
Right.
what I find so fascinating. And that's frankly what I think there's a lot of value in the work that we do for clients is it is, kind of everything we've been talking about here today, just accumulating as much money as possible is the goal. That can create a lot of stress and a lot of pressure in coming up with that actual tool. But I've seen clients that they've wanted to retire for so long. They get there, they get on the other side of the retirement, and then they're lost. They're lost. And they
Yeah.
they can come back in, but they have to realign. Like it's like I think about this, Jake. We have you and I have an asset in our business, but it's like I know there are people that have the goal of building a business and selling it and then going and living on a beach somewhere and just disappearing for a while, right? Like you're going to completely lose your identity if somebody does that. I mean, it's different from person to person, but really what I wanted to share there.
Would you ever do that?
No,
That
no, I
doesn't sound
wouldn't.
horrible.
No, I mean, there's days, right? There's days where it sounds great, but
I don't
like,
want to sell this company today, but if I'm 70 and I sell this and then I just go on a beach with Rachel and I don't know. I'm not a beach guy though. So
yeah, you are. I think well, I'm not going to speak for you. I'll speak for myself, but I think you're similar in that. Like we are. I feel very mission driven by what it
right.
is that we do here, more so than just trying to like build an asset to be as valuable as possible. But I also recognize that as a business, that having a valuable asset is a good thing, even if you don't want to sell it. Right? Like I totally recognize the value in that too. So the point I just want to share there. And I know that's not a specific story, but I just wanted to kind of speak to people that have found themselves a little lost in retirement, that it can require them to do some work to figure out, what are my values, what is important to me, and that can actually be the unlock to make retirement more to make someone more confident and comfortable and content in retirement.
Yeah, and let's be clear, it's not their fault.
No.
Like there's no shame in this at all. At
Yes.
all. I mean, Cory, you and I have had thousands of meetings. We have hundreds of clients, and we've talked to clients about their fears, about where they're proud or guilt. Sometimes people are guilty for being wealthy.
Yeah.
And that's okay, actually, to feel that, or the freedom that the wealth provides. And it's checking in with those emotions, embracing them, and then evaluating what we need to do next. What's our next course of action? And that helps me get into our next segment here, Cory, about the framework. And I've got a simple 3-part lens to help our audience evaluate what their wealth might say about them. So number 1, Cory, is how did you get the money? What was the origin of the money? Did you earn it? Are you like an entrepreneur? Did you get an inheritance? Did you use compound interest and work for 40 years? Or did you win the lottery? Right? Where is the money, your wealth? Where did it come from? Okay. So that's step number 1. Step number 2 is the meaning of the money. What does the money represent to you? Like I talked about, is it freedom? Is it safety? Is it status? Is it legacy? Right? What is the meaning of this money? The purpose? And then number 3 is the impact. And this is basically, how does it affect your choices? Are you a risk taker? Are you very generous? Do you value relationships? Do you value experiences over stuff? Like, what is the impact that you want to have with this money? So I really want to challenge our audience. And I'd love it if you wanted to share it with Luke. If you feel so inclined, you can email Luke@falconwealthadvisors.com. I'd love to hear your origin, the meaning, and the impact. And let's go through this together, Cory, just as a sample. So
Let's do it.
my wealth today, I'm 44 years old. It largely has come from slowly accumulating, right? I've been working since I graduated college. So, I've been an advisor for 19 years. So I've been working, 19, 20 years, and it's been compound interest and saving. I am an entrepreneur because we started our own company, Falcon Wealth Advisors. So there's a lot of nuance there. But that's where it came from. And what it represents to me is time management. So, after I got, Maslow's hierarchy of needs at the fundamental level, now money is how can I buy back time for me and Rachel? I actually like mowing the yard. However, I know that I've got a very big yard now and I'm probably not very good at it. And I'm happy to pay people to mow my yard. But while they're mowing my yard, Cory, I'm working at Falcon Wealth Advisors. I'm not on my couch. I'm not out scrolling on my phone. I'm working and I'm making money to pay for those people that pay my yard so that I can afford it easily. and I'm also helping support them, which is very cool to me. Like, how selfish it would be to me to not spend money on other people that can do things better. Like, they deserve to make a good living. That's selfish of me just to keep all my own money.
I agree.
I think it's very selfish for people that think that way. And then the impact, again, so to me, that is a way that I'm generous. I don't love giving to random charities, like I mentioned, unless it's tied to a client's passion. I would rather hire people to help me so that they can do what they do and love what they're doing. And then I do like nice stuff. I've got nice golf clubs. I've got a nice suits. I buy Rachel nice books that are cheap. But that's the impact. Let's hear yours, Cory, because I want to just help the audience figure this out.
Yeah. So for me, Jake, the origin is very similar to yours, right? I started working with you when I was 20 years old. Any and all wealth that I've accumulated has really been from working. It's been saving. It's been compound interest, and it's been focusing on trying to make the right choices and decisions. What it represents to me, though, Jake, that is interesting. Actually, something that I've worked on a lot in recent years. Because of what I've shared here today. Like, I recognize that money's not going to be the one thing that's going to just protect you from anything and everything. And I have come to find, Jake, that for me, what it really represents is freedom, right? And it can be freedom of time. It can be freedom of generosity. It can be the idea that if money doesn't need to, like, if there's no question marks around that, if it can provide me the freedom to make my own independent choices, that's really what it represents. But like the way I see it is I choose every day, Jake, to come here, right, and to do what we do for our clients, and that's not going to change. But it's regardless of what happens with the money, like, that's not going to change. That's what I'm coming here to do. So as far as the impact goes, I think that in my mind, if the truth is with a daughter now too, Jake, if I can raise if we can have a loving home, can raise a respectful child that has a healthy relationship with money and not an unhealthy one. And if I can do things to help be generous for other people, I'm totally open to that, because I recognize that it's not the case for everyone, and money causes a lot of issues. So for me, actually generosity is a big impact that money allows for, and also the freedom to really make those choices for myself.
Good. See, it's that simple, audience. Just do the same thing with yourself, here's the big myth that I want to debunk, Cory, is that more money means less stress. Cory, is that myth or not, you think?
Myth. Let's bust it.
Yeah, it is a myth. Yeah, let's bust it.
More money, more problems. Somebody said that once.
So here's the deal. Without clarity, more money often just means magnified anxiety or indecision. More money, more problems, Cory. There you go. You said it best there. So what to us, Cory, wealth is actually a mirror, not just a measure. So I talked about, for me, it's like a scoreboard, but my relationship with money, the impact that I have with it, right? The meaning, that is the mirror. And that's what you need to focus on and understand here.
Yeah, it's just reflecting back what you already see. So like, if you don't feel safe without money, you're not going to feel safe with it.
Yeah, exactly. And same with happiness. If you think money is going to give you happiness, it's not.
That's right. And you're not going to outgrow fear by getting richer.
Right. You've got to
You're going to outgrow it by getting more clear.
Man, it's scary. But yeah, you've got to do that. That's good. Yeah. So to recap it up here. So wealth isn't neutral. It reflects your actual beliefs and behaviors. And you have to understand that you have a relationship with money. And again, I can't stress this enough. You can get insight. Cory and I just did it. I didn't know that about you were that generous, Cory.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that was that important to you. I know you're a generous guy, but I didn't know it was that important to you. So again, check in with the origin, the meaning, and the impact of your wealth. And again, ultimately, knowing what your wealth says about you can guide to better decisions and deeper satisfaction. And when you go and meet with your financial planner at Falcon Wealth Advisors, if you have this relationship crystal clear and provide that to them, they're going to be able to give you better advice. And that's also the big key here. So if you are clear about your impact and your meaning, right? It's pretty easy to figure out the origin of your wealth, but like, if you have all those things clearly defined and you just hand that over, say, hey, this is how I feel, then perfect. Our financial planners can give you some really good advice based on that. So again, we encourage personal reflection on today's show. Ask yourself, what story is your wealth telling you? And is it the one you wanted to tell? And is now the time to make a change?
Yes.
Right? Is now the time to make a change. And please, if you wanted to have a conversation about this more, like Cory and I just did, I think Cory and I got a lot of value out of going back and forth. just send me a message. Let Luke know. Cory and I are happy to meet with you as the wealth advisors. We have these kind of conversations with our clients all the time, and we're happy to do that. Just email Luke, say, hey, episode 355, I really loved what these guys said. I want to set up a meeting with them. I want to talk about it more. We're happy to do that for you.
Yep.
All right, good, Cory. All right, good. So we got a little bit of time now to go on to our listener suggestions. So I'm going to read it off here.
Okay.
You ready?
Yep. Let's go.
I've been watching Cory and Jake's show for several years now. Thank you, by the way.
Thank you.
And he just watched the latest episode about RSUs, ESPPs, and stock options. His company, Cory, offers an employee stock ownership program, also known as an ESOP. Would Cory and Jake treat that the same as employee stock purchase plans? The only issue, there is no chance to sell off the shares. They're only paid out once you're either retire or leave the company. Their 401k match at this company is put into the ESOP instead of the 401k. So yes, this isn't for everybody, but if your company has an ESOP, to answer the question, Cory, no, I don't necessarily treat it the same as employee stock purchase plans because you can't sell the shares like you mentioned. Cory, as my guest, I'll let you answer first and I'll chime in. Do you have thoughts on this? It's a great question.
Yeah, it is a great question. I agree with you, Jake, that I would not treat it the same. I think in terms of thinking about wealth in the long term, if the company that you work for is a solid one and what that ESOP actually looks like what those shares are going to look like in the future is an important decision. Or it's something to evaluate. But I don't think that if you're working somewhere and you have the ESOP, it can be part of your financial plan, but it's not going to be treated the same as RSUs or any other stock options because of the nature for this individual.
Yes. So the key piece I would add on to that is that I would diversify around it. So if you're an engineer, I would be very careful of my other engineering exposure in my portfolio because these ESOPs can get really big, Cory.
Right.
There could be millions of dollars in your ESOP and you have no control over it. So it is a risk. And I understand why these companies do it, right? They want to reward high achievers. They want people drinking the company Kool-Aid. And it can be very lucrative, but I would manage risk around it as much as I could in my control. And I would just build it into the financial plan and have a very specific strategy and just understand you're in a little bit more of a high risk industry if you have millions of dollars in your ESOP. It's a good problem to have, but it needs to be reviewed. And your rest of your investments need to collaborate with it or coordinate or offset, whatever you want to use there to make sure that you're properly diversified. So that's what I would do. I wouldn't put more in that ESOP because if your match is already going in there, I would just be very careful of that. So good question. And we deal with that. We've dealt with ESOPs, obviously.
Yeah. And maybe I'm saying the same thing that you just did, Jake, about diversifying around it. But I would also add to that, don't make that the sole source of your retirement.
Yes, exactly. Good point. You want to save out. Maybe you need to save outside the 401k, right? Because if you have enough in your 401k, good point, Cory, according to your financial plan, maybe you even stop contributing, believe it or not. I mean, you obviously want to do it to get the match, but maybe you just put in enough to get the match and then you do something else with that savings. You open a brokerage account or a Roth IRA or something else to diversify. Good point, Cory. All right, good. As we wind down today's episode, Cory, you got any personal stuff you want to share with our audience?
Would recommend if anybody's planning on taking family photos, don't do it on a 95-degree day.
Really hot out there, Cory. Loose Park. How'd you guys do?
We actually did pretty well. Cassie and I were really happy with how the finished product looked, given that it was 95 degrees and there was 36-mile-an-hour winds. We actually got a lot of photos that turned out pretty good. The baby actually looks better in all the photos than us. It's funny.
Well, she was probably having a good time.
Yep, that's the newest thing going on. How about you?
I just got back. It's member guest season for the golf season. I played in the member guest at Southern Hills, and it was fantastic. That club is first class through and through, Cory. My guest played fantastically. The guy had 12 birdies in 45 holes. Cory, I had 3. But doesn't matter. We were good enough to get second in the championship flight. We made the horse race. We got beat in a chip off on the second hole. So basically, I think we were top 10 out of 108 teams. That's solid. Yeah, and credit to him. He played really well. He's a great guy, great partner. We had a lot of fun, a lot of laughs, and it's always good when you play good golf too. But it's great. So credit to Southern Hills for putting on a first class member guest. I don't think I could. It's very tough to beat that one as far as the production that they put on. And so,
speaking of production, if anybody's watching this, they should go check out your Instagram page, Jake, that you mentioned earlier.
That's right.
To see the production that was put together around some of the time you spent on the sand in Southern Hills.
Yes, go check it out. It's a reel, so you got to go follow me on Instagram. Check it out. They did a really good job of roasting me a little bit, and it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun being part of that.
We had a lot of laughs. Well,
well
done.
Good.
Bravo to Southern Hills on that one.
That's good. Well, thank you as always for joining me, Cory, and thank you all for tuning in. We hope you have a great week.
Thank you for listening to Upticks. Click the subscribe button to be notified when new episodes become available. Also, be sure to visit our website at www.falconwealthadvisors.com and click the Contact Us button if you'd like to meet with Jake and his team.